We are really grateful to have this opportunity to create an experience online that would mirror what would be happening in church. Martin and I, believe it or not, are sitting at home. It's a sort of magic that we have this wonderful image of the sanctuary behind us. We wanted to try and create something that had some elements of our normal worship service time together, so that we can kind of have that touchstone. But there's going to be lots that's different than when we're normally gathering together to worship on Sundays. So let's just be curious about what happens, how this is going to go. And you'll see on your screen, I believe what you're seeing right now is Megon McDonough. Yay! Megan
Good morning, everyone.
Brilliant musician and metaphysician. She's going to help me with the message and also just carry us through from the music of that other realm. And Martin Taylor, who is a brilliant tech master and is working hard to make sure we can do this on an ongoing basis. He is also our chaplain of the day. So Martin is joining us for those pieces.
Good morning.
Shall we start with a song?
I think that would be lovely.
So this is a Unity standard that I love, and you probably know it. And if you don't, it's very easy to learn. I will play it through 3 times, and you are always welcome to sing along. Weave us together. Weave us together in unity and love. Weave us together. Weave us together in love. That's how it goes. Weave us together. Weave us together in unity and love. Weave us together. Weave us together in love. Weave us together. Weave us together in unity and love. Weave us together. We are together in unity and love.
Thank you, Megan. Beautiful. Yeah, weave us together across the space and time continuum. We're meeting together here. So welcome to Unity on the North Shore. I know we're still having a little bit of difficulty getting to the Facebook feed, but those of you who are here with us on Zoom, thank you. Thank you for being here, and just know that we're going to continue to try and reach out to others so that we can have a really collective experience. Know that we also, that Unity is a practical spiritual approach to abundant living. We are based on the teachings of Jesus and the power of prayer. And actually our co-founders, Charles and Myrtle Fillmore, began this work about 125 years ago on healing. So what more appropriate energy to kind of bring to our consciousness and our awareness than what our founders did. We believe that truth and beauty are expressed in every spiritual tradition, and we know that truth and beauty are available to us here and now as we open our hearts and minds to really receive it, in spite of what most of the appearances are here. Wherever you are in your journey of faith, please know that you're welcome here and that we want to continue to build connections, both emotionally and spiritually, even when we can't physically be present. Our vision and mission reflect who we are as a community and how we fulfill our spiritual purpose. If you know it with me, or if you have access to our website at the same time, then please speak it with me. Our vision statement: centered in spirit, we co-create a world that works for all. Centered in spirit, we co-create a world that works for all. And our mission, you know what, I'll speak a line of that and you can kind of repeat it with me. And I'm going to encourage you to speak it out loud even if you're home alone, because what we know is that the power that we express through our physical being, the power of the word spoken aloud, has the power to bring it into manifestation. And now more than ever, this work of creating a world that works for all is truly important. So our mission, what's happening?
Cool.
Our mission, we are an empowering, diverse spiritual community. Say that with me. We are an empowering, diverse spiritual community experiencing spirit within to create a peaceful and prosperous world. Oh, I get what happened. Thank you. We got the script. We got the slide up. Beautiful. Thank you, Denise. So if this is, this is your first Sunday with us in this format, at least. So thank you so much for being here. And I know we were also working with the folks at Unity of Oak Park. So if we've got some folks from Unity of Oak Park online, we're just really grateful for your presence and for your energy as well. And we'll just keep on trucking and see how this can help us to really create a sense of connection in spite of all that's going on in our world right now. And Megan, without having the order of service, I'm imagining that it's time for another song. Does that work for you?
It is indeed, my friend. So this is a song, Unity, based on the Unity Prayer for Protection, written by Richard McDonough. You are welcome to sing along. I am the light of God, I am the love of God, I am the power of God, I am the presence of God wherever I am. God is you. You are the light of God, you are the love of God, you are the power of God, you are the presence of God wherever you are. God is we. We are the light of God, we are the love of God, we are the power of God, we are the presence of God, wherever we are, God is. And we'll do we one more time. We are the light of God, we are the love of God, we are the power of God, we are the presence of God, wherever we are, God is, and all is well. And so it is.
Good morning. I'm Martin Taylor, and I'm going to be acting as your remote chaplain for this morning. So let us start by reading the daily word. And as I read, let my words be your words. I take dominion over my thoughts, words, and actions. The power of God protects me. We just sang that. Today I hear with renewed understanding this line from James Dillard Freeman, Prayer of Protection. In growing awareness of oneness with my source, I realize that the power of God works through me and as me, rather than simply in me or for me. I embody divine power by choosing words that affirm the truth that I am a spiritual being as I navigate the valleys and peaks of my human experience. By expressing my power, I am claiming dominion over my words and thoughts. I affirm statements of truth while releasing negative thoughts and ideas. I think and speak with the authority of my Christ presence. And the scripture passage, for God did not give us a spirit of cowardice, but rather a spirit of power and of love and of self-discipline. And that's taken from Paul's second letter to Timothy, chapter 1, verse 7. And now as we continue to focus on prayer, let's take time to remember those loved ones who are in our own prayers today. And if you wish, you can type the name of your prayer partner into our chat box, and it will be held in prayer by our prayer team. You may wish to speak the words of your prayer aloud. Please do. You have just heard the power of this. As we continue in prayer, Divine Spirit, we recognize that this is a difficult time for all the people of the community and of the world. In claiming your guidance and compassion, we remember to reach out in support to those who may be anxious and fearful at this time. Although we may be physically separated, we remain one in spirit and are grateful for the technology that allows us to stay connected with eyes and voices, if not with handshakes and hugs. In this time also of uncertainty, we affirm that we can choose to respond rather than to react. We look past appearances that cause us to react in ways that don't reflect our divine essence. We refrain from using our power of imagination to create fearful, adverse scenarios. We refrain from upset, anger, and defensiveness. We seek clarity before we take things personally or make incorrect assumptions. We remain calm and centered in the face of upset and confusion, and remember that the events themselves do not cause overreaction. Rather, it is our reaction to the events that can be troublesome. And we always have a choice to respond with God's guidance and love rather than to react. And now, know that God is always present in and around us and our loved ones. Right here, right now. And so it is, and so we let it be. Amen.
Thank you, Martin. All shall be well, all shall be well, all manner of things shall be well. All shall be well, all shall be well, all manner of things shall be well. I am walking through the green pastures, and I know that I'm not alone. The song of the meadowlark sings in my soul, tenderly calling me home, saying all shall be well, all shall be well, all manner of things shall be well, all shall be well, all shall be well, all manner of things shall be well. I am walking beside the still waters, as fresh as the breeze at dawn, the voice of my ancestors whispering, giving me strength to carry on, saying all shall be well, all shall be well, all manner of things shall be well, all shall be well, all shall be well, all manner of things shall be well. Surely goodness and mercy will follow, and love will be leading the way. Every shadow will shine in the fullness of time, and bloom in the hearts of the brave, saying all shall be well, all shall be well, all manner of things shall all shall be well. All shall be well. All manner of things shall be well. Yes, all shall be well. All shall be well. All manner of things shall be well. All shall be well. All shall be well. All manner of things shall be well. All shall be well.
Thank you, Megan.
Thank you,
Beautiful
Kurt.
as always, and so appropriate. Goodness.
Thank you. That's a new song by yours truly, Karen Drucker and Jan Garrett, two amazing songwriters.
Oh, beautiful. How blessed we are to have you with us.
Thank you.
So Megan and I thought we would, for the message, if we were sitting in church in a normal service, this would be the time when I'd get up and preach, or deliver the talk, or however you like to think of those. We thought we would mix it up a little bit and make this a kind of a conversation. Megan is an incredible presenter and a longtime metaphysician and has great insights. And so we've been working together to kind of do a kind of back and forth, a conversation really, about how we can move through this, even in a time of kind of fear and trepidation and anxiety, how we move through it in a way that is grounded in spirituality. Is that fair to say? Is that where we've landed? That's kind of the
absolutely right on. And I just want our guests to know that anytime Kurt and I get together, like we meet for coffee every now and then, it is a gab fest to beat the band. And we both walk away from our time together like, yes, write this all down. So
we think we're brilliant. We think we're brilliant together, so we're going to share it with you this time.
So between the two of us, we're going to come up with some good stuff. We hope. That's our hope.
Well, and it's interesting because as we've been preparing, just as day to day, the situation and circumstances change, the instructions change. And I think the message that we're bringing has changed. We've been texting back and forth even this morning. And we had talked yesterday, I think our big theme was, it's in unity there can be this tendency to claim truth, in the midst of stuff. And we talked about trying to jump from mountaintop to mountaintop. And there's a valley experience that we're on, right?
Yes.
And there's value in making sure that we're aware of this valley experience and the feelings that are arising and the fear that might be present. And so that doesn't become the driving factor, so that we're fully present to our own experience and then can begin to transcend it. I really think being able to enough self-awareness to be able to identify those feelings actually is the most powerful step we can take toward transcending them so that we get to that mountaintop peace.
Exactly.
So that's kind of where we were yesterday, and it all changed this morning.
Right? Yes.
Not that still isn't relevant, right? There are still, self-awareness is like the baseline. That's got to be in place no matter what. And whatever spiritual practices you find that help you to stay in that place, now is the time to really accelerate those. Now is the time to be spending more time in prayer meditation and more time listening to inspiring music like Megan writes. And now is the time to be really deepening your Lenten practice. For those of you I know at Unity North Shore, we had passed out the Lenten book, and there are daily meditations and readings. In fact, I want to revisit the one from yesterday toward the end of this talk. So if you've got them handy, bring them around, because I think that's a perfect kind of expression for casting a vision for that mountaintop piece. Because it's one thing to be aware of what's happening in the shadowland, in the valleys, but to have an image of what we're holding for where we're going for that mountaintop experience is every bit as important to be able to hold that.
Yes.
So.
Isn't it interesting that it's Lent, that this is a time like no other? And what I was thinking was that anything I don't have data on is frightening for me. Anything I don't have history on. I was thinking about this yesterday and this morning in my morning pages. is that kids and dogs don't have memory or history really on how things are going to go. You know, so when you come home, your dog is always happy to see you, because when you leave, your dog thinks you are gone forever, you know. And so when I don't have data on something, and when I go to my like kid self, I'm like, kids think this is always how it's going to be, because they don't have history on, oh, this can get better. So I'm whenever I'm in that hallway of yikes, I don't know this language. I think that's what was so upsetting about rock and roll when it for, you know, nobody had, it was strange, it was different, it was scary. Anything strange, different, and scary, or scientific, for me is like, well, I'm not a scientist, but I think my internal scientists knows that common sense place. So I think if I can just keep that in mind of like, okay, this is going to change. It's just territory we've never experienced in my lifetime.
Well, and I think that's the gift, right? I mean, I know this is kind of a leap. I'm heading for mountaintop environment here, but even in the midst of this, that there is a gift, and I think that gift is this ability to be like supernaturally present. We are in the moment now in a way that we otherwise would not be. What's most important to us now becomes really self-evident. Our priorities have completely shifted around, and I think that's the gift. I was listening to a wonderful podcast, and I was looking for the woman's name. Her name is Rebecca Soheet. She's an author, she's an activist, she's a historian. And you know, you're talking before about how kids have that ability to be present, like your dog is present in this moment. They're looking for what's most present. And she's this Rebecca Soheet had this amazing perspective that actually says where we're moving can be informed by our history, if we're willing to sort of really look at the stories that we've made meaning of. And right now, we're in a time when the dominant story, the cultural story that is told about being in crisis like this, is that as humans, we revert to our fearful selves, and there is looting and pillaging and raping, right? That's kind of the fear that underlies all this. And her suggestion is that, what if that story isn't true? What if our nature is not, you know, that Darwinian kind of only the strongest survive? What if our truest nature is about being compassionate and being generous and longing for connection? And that becomes the story that we tell ourselves about what this situation, the meaning that we're making of this situation. And she says, looking back at history, at the ways in which that has become evident, is actually helpful, right? She was in San Francisco during the 1989 earthquake. I had moved away just shortly before that, but had a lot of friends who were, and that's the one where the freeway collapsed, you remember, and the magnitude was as strong as some of the ones around the world where there were thousands who died. In the San Francisco quake, 50 people died in large part due to the infrastructure. But she says when you go back and talk with people, that's almost become like a benchmark, that you run into people and you get in conversation. It's like, where were you in 1989? And there's this camaraderie that rises up because you survived that together. There's something about that's metaphysical about having moved through that shared experience, that now there's a sense of hope that can be relied upon when we look at the next unknown. Because as much as we hunger for data, like you were saying, as much as we want the information, we don't have it. We don't know what's coming next. We don't know how we're going to do the service next week. Right now, it worked really well to get the Zoom feed going, but clearly the Facebook sub isn't working. So we're going to address that. We'll figure out a way to do that.
Yes.
We don't know what it is. That doesn't mean we can't be present to the connection that we're feeling here and now, and really allowing that to uplift our spirits and maybe change our perspective in the story we tell about what the experience is that we're moving through.
Yes, I love, thank you also for, I love Krista Tippett, and I listen to her on Sunday mornings, but I love the interview with Rebecca. And the name of her book is perfect. It's Falling Together. instead of falling apart, falling together. And she talks about in New Orleans.
Again, I don't want you to lose that thought, but I do want to just put a plug in here. So we talked about Krista Tippett. Her podcast is called On Being. Great resource. If you've got time to listen to podcasts, highly recommend. Whoever Krista interviews has great insights. So just
Truly. Yeah,
okay,
and if you
so
have time to listen, which I'm thinking, yeah, we all have a little time to, I'll get back to this, but I've used this time to catch up on a lot of things, like Krista Tippett's, and to go back in the, Unity on the North Shore has some videos. Your local Unity Church has videos. But she was talking about the first responders in New Orleans were single moms, people in poverty coming together, and people with boats. We are so grateful for our first responders, for the police, for the fire department, for the medical staff, who are the heroes on the front lines of the virus. But it is really a time where, I forget the scientist or the doctor who was talking about when he was in medical school, you sort of lose, at an emergency, you lose all fear of, it's like mothers lifting cars off children. It's this rush where something takes over. And what is that something? But, I think
it's our Christ selves, right? It's our best selves. And to be able to learn as we access it now through this crisis thing, to be able to learn that and hold that and because we know that this is temporary, right? We know that this too shall pass. And to be able to live from this kind of awareness and this level of consciousness and this appreciation for how deeply connected we are across the planet, once the crisis has passed, will change the world. It will change everything. Which I think is a wonderful segue. Megan, yesterday after we did the rehearsal, like I said, this has been taking shape since we started talking about it. But we found out that 11 o'clock today, our time, Marianne Williamson, whatever you think about her politics, she is a brilliant prayer. She is wonderful at sort of calling us to higher consciousness. And at 11 o'clock today, our time, Central Time, across the planet, they're going to spend 2 minutes in a global prayer. So for first responders, for all those who have been affected by, for those who are still in service industries that are keeping us fed, we're going to spend 2 minutes in prayer because we know the power of joining in consciousness with those of like mind. So essentially, when she sent out the email, it had times in Auckland, Australia, and times in Brussels and Europe. And so this is a time when we can globally connect and just let our energy, our prayerful energy, our mountaintop kind of vision be what we hold as we move through this experience.
Thank you for remembering that, Kurt. And it's
so we're at 10:59. You do a marvelous job of. I know you were planning on kind of later doing a prayer with an underscore, but do you want to take this? Or would you rather underscore and I'll pray? What do you like?
I will underscore. I'll start the prayer and pass to you. Right here, right now, we know there is one presence and one power in the universe and in our lives. God the good, omnipotent. That we are one with this one and can never be separated from it. So it's from this place of oneness, I speak a word of healing treatment for all of us, knowing that there is enough. There is enough love. There is enough life, light, power, peace, beauty, and joy. I am so grateful for the divine order in life, for the healing, for the peace of mind, for the guided hands of all our caregivers, first responders, holy workers. In the realm of light, I am so grateful. I release this treatment into the action of the law that only says yes, yes, yes to life. So be it, and so it is. Let us remain in the silence for a moment.
And so now, as we gently bring this global prayer time to a close, we're just grateful for the opportunity to connect with millions around the planet, knowing and affirming that there is a higher order of being that's coming into fuller expression, knowing and affirming that all the obstacles that we now face are being dissolved in the realm of the infinite. Solutions, materials, ideas that will bring forth healing for all and greater connection are already being made manifest. And we're grateful for the role that each of us plays in creating that world that works for all.
Beautiful. Thank you, Kurt.
That was cool.
That was very cool. I got a great feeling on that one.
Love the idea that it was not just even us, but that across the planet there's a field of energy being unleashed.
2 powerful minutes can change the world, I think. I believe in that, to pray for a miracle. And speaking of prayer, we know that you know, Kurt, what, as Krista Tippett would ask, what was your religious or spiritual upbringing? Were you raised in unity? I'm thinking maybe not.
Oh, that's funny. Actually, kind of. The answer is kind of. I was raised in a very small town, and we went to church. They didn't have enough Baptists or enough Presbyterians to each have their own churches. So they kind of just started meeting together, and it's called the Union Church of Quincy, Michigan, and it's still ongoing. In fact, we may have some folks who are watching from Quincy, Michigan today. So I didn't really get the distinction between those. And then my grandmother was also the organist at the Methodist Church and choir director. So we bounced around to all these different Christian denominations, and I never really knew about differences between them. So in some ways, I think it was great preparation for the sort of one God, many paths kind of understanding.
Right. Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. Yes, and it's interesting. It was called the Union Church.
Union Church.
Not far from unity.
Yes.
Yes.
And back when we were attending as kids, it was largely Presbyterian. They were leaning more Presbyterian. These days they've gone more Baptist. So it's just interesting now that I'm an adult, I can go back and kind of see the distinctions and the differences. So.
Have you been having some interesting conversations with your friends? I think we all have. We've all been, this is the great connector this time. I talk to my siblings, I talk to my son, I talk to friends. I'm thinking about the past, and I'm thinking, who do I want to be in the new world? But this coming together is an important time. And I was talking to a dear friend of mine, Tom Bishop, who's a terrific songwriter, and we were talking about Buddhism, and we were both raised Catholic, we're both Irish, and how it's all kind of in this beautiful soup now of, I love the Buddhist tradition that would instruct to stay in the moment, but I love the mysticism of Catholicism, the religion I was raised in, which I call my first theater experience. And we were talking about how the Buddhist tradition would say reincarnation, many times. And I was thinking about first responders, and there's a teaching in Buddhism of bodhisattva, which are souls that could have reincarnated so many times and served and burned off all their karma that they could go to nirvana. But they choose to come back until all sentient beings can go to nirvana. And they come back to serve and serve and serve. And I'm like, whoa, that's intense. And then there's the fundamentalist Christian teaching of that Jesus died that Jesus took all that karma and burned it for me by, the crucifixion. So these are the things I'm sort of, filling my mind with in my day, and I'm going back to the past and, trying to clear away the wreckage of the past. And then there's 12-step tradition, and of course my unity since I've been the early 80s, it just all seems to be being called up now for me. And I was thinking about Jesus knew his science, and Einstein knew his spiritual nature. So I just want to presence science and religion are now really, I think, coming together because we're less afraid of the science. From now on, we're all going to wash our hands so much more.
No, that's true.
Put in place now.
Well,
anyway,
and
it's on a tangent.
It seems it's those deeper conversations that are really going to move us into a more loving space, right?
Yes.
I've been thinking about the Lenten booklet that I mentioned earlier. It's fasting and feasting. So we were fasting from limitation on Friday, and then yesterday we were feasting on freedom was sort of the passage, and it was brilliant. It's written by a minister in Unity of San Francisco, and especially at this time because it's really feeling like we are constrained, right? It's in some ways it's feeling like we are in prison. It's elective to some degree, but our movement is much curtailed, and so to think about that as a time of freedom really challenge us to go deeper. Like, what does that mean? What does freedom mean? And in this passage, what they talked about in terms of being freedom being limited by the ideas that we hold, that's sort of the bondage, and that what this really is allowing us to do is know freedom from a whole different realm. It's freedom about how do we allow ourselves to experience and express our Christ essence, our highest selves, more freely. And it got me thinking about, it got me thinking about Paul, who, he wasn't the Apostle Paul, but Paul who used to be Saul from Tarsus, the Paul who went through this incredible conversion, right? Much of the church, we really have, the establishment of the church was really Paul's. He was like the greatest evangelical ever, right? And so he went out and founded all these churches in all these cities around the ancient world, and then was imprisoned for the very same thing that he was persecuting Christians for back when he was a Pharisee. But it's from prison that he would write these beautiful letters to the Corinthians and the Galatians, and even in those circumstances, right? Even when his freedom, as we would think of it, to move around the physical world was completely constrained, he still found this incredible appreciation for that presence. He knew joy even in the midst of freedom. And he wrote inspiring these other churches all around the ancient world to do the same. That it helps us really, I think, understand that freedom isn't necessarily about being able to go out and, I don't know, fly to Minneapolis. I was supposed to do that this weekend. I was going to be at a concert there. I was hoping to. Well, all that's changed. All that's unknown. But in both in the unknowing, which can be a limitation that binds us, and in the limited thinking in terms of what we think ourselves capable of, all that we can dissolve if we're centered in the truth of who we truly are. We recognize that we're spiritual beings, and what's most important in our lives is being connected to that.
And I think, yes. And would you say that staying curious is a better way to go than drawing back. You know, if I can, what did Mark Twain say about travel is fatal for prejudice, bigotry, and closed-mindedness. To travel. Um, I think the direction we were headed in as a nation and perhaps as a planet was so much separation and fear and real anger that and I'm not my theory is that could only go so far. For the last 3.5 years, I've been a little too focused on I don't like that, and I want that to change, and my wand broke long ago,
No, or did it, or did it, or
Exactly.
is this the very manifestation that's demonstrating to us how deeply we're connected, that even that anger is going to become toxic?
Exactly.
It's sort of like it's the law working. It's not.
It is the law working. It couldn't have gone any other way because that energy has got to go someplace. So if I can just, whoa, stop that. Just, if you don't want to hear that, turn it off. But don't watch it thinking,
Well, and I think that the way we do that, I think the way that we get past that, right? Okay, we've got the we know we want to, but just to stop thinking that. I mean, it's helpful. I mean, we know that that's an action we have to do. But what really begins to move us out, I believe, is being of service.
Yes.
That ability to be curious. I have our chaplains this week. They're probably one of the most closely knit groups within the ministry. They are really bonded and connected. And their monthly meeting was yesterday. Well, they didn't want to give that up, even though they couldn't be physically present. So they together, I mean, the co-leaders of the team figured out how to do Zoom and got all that in place, but they were literally up until midnight coaching one another who hadn't been able to use this technology. But driven by this desire to be together, driven by the desire to serve one another, they transcended the circumstance and ended up having this really beautiful meeting. And they're coming up with more ideas about how they can be of service and in service to our broader community. So I think the more that we can stay curious, but start to be curious about how it is that I can be of service. How can I begin to help my neighbor? Because that was one of the other things that Rebecca had talked about, right? That it's the neighbors who are the unsung heroes in these crises. It's the neighbors typically who are going to show up when, I don't know, your bathtub overflows and you've got a flood to deal with, or the house collapses. It's the neighbors who are there. They're the first responders, and we are all neighbors to someone, right? So how do we really allow ourselves to be of service, in service, to really transform the energy of erg?
And to, instead of isolating, to reach out and ask for help. Ask for help. Call the prayer chaplains. I'm a religious science prayer practitioner. Email me, go on Facebook, instant message me, ask for prayer. It's incredible. It's been incredibly healing in my life. Silent Unity, call Silent Unity. Oh my gosh. If you call Silent Unity, my first experience with them was years ago. I called Silent Unity and they picked up the phone and they say, "How may we pray with you?" I felt like somebody dropped a fizzy into my bloodstream. I'm like, wee! That feels so connecting, connect. These are the times that,
Yep, both ways. Keep ourselves fed, keep ourselves centered and grounded, and also start to look for the ways in which, like when I called you to see about doing this, you were completely on board, whatever form it took, and we've just stayed in a conversation about, all right, what's going to happen? First, it was going to be at the church, and we were going to have, just a small crew there to be able to create it. And now that we're doing this deeper level of social distancing, we're doing this piece here. And that's not to say that won't change. We've got some folks working on what the best solution is to be able to really create an online experience and an online presence for folks that'll be rewarding and wonderful. So
Yes, and
as all of us really look for the ways that we can continue to be that presence, then I think we're on the
thank
right
you for
track.
the invitation. Thank you for the invitation. Thank you for letting me serve. Thank you for your service, Kurt, for everybody, Denise, Martin, everyone who put this all together. It takes a village. And thank you to Zoom and the internet. People say, oh, the internet's bad. And other people say, oh, the internet's good. It's both. It's how am I going to show up?
Yeah. So if I were going to summarize, I would say, first of all, really be mindful of the stories that we're making up about this and the stories that we tell ourselves about who we really are, right? Remember that we are children, each of us, of the Most High God, and that really our deepest nature is to be generous and nurturing. And I loved, who's the Chancellor of Germany? Angela Merkel, right? Somebody sent me, she did this wonderful speech and I loved it. She made this beautiful distinction, and I don't know how accurate the translation was, but it resonated for me, that there's a difference between stockpiling and hoarding, right? Stockpiling is making sure I'm taking care of the needs that I have. Hoarding is totally out of fear, right? And so there's a way in which all of us can come from that attitude of being able to take care of and being willing to share with others and being a higher level of and I think all of that, I think that's our truest nature, the Darwinian, I got to get mine and whoever suffers on the way. I don't think that's true. I think
No.
as we learn more about how deeply connected we are, that the loving nature sort of is really the dominant feature that we have the capacity to bring. If we can sort of be aware of when we're feeling fear and be aware of how we can transform that, right?
Yeah.
If I'm feeling fearful, be curious about what I'm able to do that will bring more love into the world rather than blame or shame or frustration or anger or hoarding, whatever that is.
Yes, yes. And there are more creators than there are haters. You don't have to be a unity minister to know what you just said. It is the innate light within all of us that's now being, it couldn't, and maybe it could have come forth, it couldn't have come forth any other way. I mean,
yeah, and I say is that if we start to focus on those stories, if we start to really bring to mind, instead of bringing to mind the lock and light, bring to mind the folks who've stepped out, the people that we see inspiring others. If that becomes the story that we hold,
yes.
Then what we recognize is that they're doing amazing things. And each and every one of us has that capacity and really that call to step out of our limited self into the freedom of expressing our most divine selves, our highest and best selves, and just letting that be what leads.
Yes, yes. The universe has our attention. Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. Well, my friend, I think that is we did not do.
Segue. I think that's a segue into meditation. Yeah.
I think so.
Now we've done some little praying. This one, it'll be a shorter meditation than usual since we just did the global one, but
exactly.
I love the idea of following a talk like this because there'll be a lot of ideas bubbling around and just moving into a time of meditation and giving folks who are watching an opportunity to maybe pick one or two ideas that they'll take with them as they move into their day.
Beautiful. I breathe in and know. I breathe out and let go. And I know in my heart that's the right place to start. Just breathe.
We're grateful for the gift of breath, for the gift that these current circumstances, or the opportunity these current circumstances provide us to be fully present, to really be in the moment, not projecting out ahead of what might happen, but to recognize that in the right here and right now, with each breath, we're provided with all that we need. We remember that there is a higher level of being, and that as we touch that consciousness, whatever we might need, we can trust that it is being provided in the here and now. We can trust that even in these times where there's foreboding and anxiety, that when we remember the truth of being, that we are one with God and all that is, there's nothing to fear. As we rest in awareness of the freedom we have to fully express our divinity, we create a world that works not only for us, but that works for all. With each thought, with each breath, with every turn toward curiosity instead of fear, and hope, greater good is expressing. So as we rest now in a time of quiet, I would invite those of you who are listening and watching online to simply formulate an affirmation, a very simple statement, an I am statement that you can hold and perhaps make a touchstone to keep you centered and grounded in the truth of your being. So as we rest in the quiet, simply allow Spirit to reveal to you a wonderful, powerful affirmation of what's most true of you in the quiet. The deepest truth is that there is one presence and one power in the universe and as us. Thank you, Spirit, for our recognition of this truth. Thank you, Spirit, for our desire for connection. Thank you, Spirit, for this wonderful time to remember truth.
I breathe in to be what is true, right and real. I'm alive, I am healed. I breathe. Just breathe. Breathe.
Thank you, Megan. Beautiful. So this is the time in our usual order of service when we would receive our tithes and our offerings. And clearly we won't be passing offering bags up and down the seats, but we would like just to remind you that your spiritual community still has expenses. We still have payroll to make. If you can give at this time, oh look, this slide is up there. Thank you, Denise. You can either text to give, or there's a give button online at unityns.org. Just click that give button, and there are a number of ways. You can mail it in. You can set up regular week, or you can regularly at regular intervals. You can set up giving. I would also invite you to remember that if you're watching from another spiritual community, your home center also has expenses to meet. So those of you who may be joining us from Oak Park, please remember to give and help to keep the doors and the operations running there at your spiritual home too. We're so grateful that you've joined us here. This is also the time when I like us to remember that there's a wonderful giving and receiving flow, and it's not just about the tangible monetary gifts, but it's also about the gifts of energy and talent and skill that we receive. So I want to kind of call out to the tech team, Martin Taylor, Clay Lindner, Paul Watkins, Denise Giambalvo. I'm trying to think if there are any others who are involved in that. They're working really hard to put together the equipment that we're going to need to be able to really be super effective at doing this online ministry as we move through this time. So we're going to need to have some equipment acquisition. So we do have some grant money that we can apply for that, but it's a matching grant. So if you could help with that, we'd just be so very grateful. So a beautiful time to remember that God is our source, and to remember that we too have this capacity to be in that flow, regardless of all of the ways in which the worldly energy is about limitation and lack. So let's know that truth together with our usual offertory prayer. I'll say a line, you can repeat it after me. My mind has gone blank. Somebody in the chat stream, give me a prompt. What is it? How do we start the offertory blessing? Divine love, there it is, as me, blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Oh, beautiful.
I believe this is my cue. Now more than ever, we are called to be our amazing selves. This is a song I wrote with my friend Janice Stanfield. It's for all of you. It's what we know about you and everyone on planet Earth. You will do amazing things with the choice each new day brings. And with every breath you take, bless the progress that you make. The reason you live is found in every gift you give. Love your life, love your dreams. You will do amazing things. Amazing, amazing. You will do amazing things. the places you will go and the people you will know. Don't worry when or where or how. You don't have to know right now. You're on the right track. No need to look ahead or back. Just enjoy what this day brings. You will do amazing things. Amazing, amazing. You will do amazing things. Amazing, amazing. You will do amazing things. You don't have to work it out. Just stay in the here and now. Let your mind rest for a little while. Sometimes deepest answers come when you're out there having fun or in. So close your eyes and take a breath and smile. Can we close our eyes and visualize healing, love, life, light, power, peace, beauty, and joy in every form. Loved ones come to mind. We just surround them in love and light, knowing that they are divinely led, prospered, healed, and whole. And we say to them, amazing, amazing. You will do amazing things. Amazing, amazing. You will do amazing things. Now sing I. Amazing, amazing. I will do amazing things. Amazing, amazing. We're here to do amazing things. Amazing. Thank you.
Megan, thank you. You are amazing.
Thank
And
you.
there are amazing things happening in our world and our ministry. This is also the time when we would bless our youth and our children. And well, I don't know, they may be home at living rooms now, sitting around TVs, or so we want to bless that energy. Also, we want to bless Kate Jordan, our Youth and Family Ministry Director. I understand that she created a soul school experience for our soul schoolers earlier this week, and we'll be looking at how we can expand that, broaden that, maybe make it available to more folks as we move forward. So let's bless Kate. Let's bless all of our teens and our youth and our kids with our usual youth blessing together. Children, we love you. We bless you. We appreciate you. We behold the Christ as you, and we see you doing great things. So it is. Oh, we do love our youth. Let's see, so just kind of in wrap-up announcements, please, like we said before, it's important to take care of your spirit these days. So if you need spiritual support, we have an online prayer box. You can go to the website. Megan mentioned you can call Silent Unity. It's 888-NOW-PRAY. You can leave messages on the lines at church. Both Kate and I will be monitoring those, even though we'll be working from home. Text me if there's anything that you need in terms of pastoral support. My number is 214-403-5933. If there's any way that I can support you, you'd just like to talk, and call me during the week or anytime. Let's see. Yes, I got that one. Was there anything else? Oh, check the website. We are moving. I got to be careful where my face goes, don't I? On the camera. We got to be we're moving a bunch of stuff. Much of the programming ministers are doing is moving to an online format. The Wednesday night book group, I know there's a link on the website. You can enter the Zoom group that's meeting on Wednesdays. They're doing a Byron Katie book right now. I know there are others. I just can't think of what they are right now, but keep an eye on our website. We will keep that up to date. There will be links to move you into all kinds of experience. Oh, Reverend Christine is, I think, finishing up the Teachings of Jesus Bible class on Tuesday night. So you can drop in on that if you've got time. Yep, I think that's all I got. Thank you to the folks from Oak Park who joined us. Oh, here's one, and Denise, you can chime in here if I'm overstating, but I'd like to offer, I'm noticing that there are hands raised and 52 folks, and we didn't really allow for that, but if anyone wants to stay on after Zoom, Denise, are we able to do that? This is we have a company, her company is actually letting us use their corporate Zoom account because it has more functionality.
Yes.
If that's okay,
yes.
I think we'll try and stay on a little longer.
We will keep this open.
Perfect. Thank you so much. We are so grateful for the folks at your company. And then maybe, who knows, we might have some more ideas as we're curious about what you might have on your minds at home. So if you're interested and have some time, stay on. We'll stay here to take questions or have some conversation or discussion for a bit. And with that, I think we'll close like we always do. Megan will lead the peace song.
Right.
Martin and I will mute ourselves, so because I know there's a lag and that gets weird, but we're going to be singing away. You can watch us sing, but you won't hear us. So God bless. Again, thank you for joining us. We'll be back again some way next week, probably through Zoom, but if it's another platform, we will send out emails. We will post it on the website. We'll do everything we possibly can to keep you in the loop. So God bless you all, and let there be peace on earth.
Let there be peace on earth. And Reverend Kurt, if you'll come back and lead the prayer of protection when we're finished singing, that'd be great. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And thank you to all the parents who are home with your kids, thinking of creative ways. Boy, this song more than ever. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be, with God as creator, family all are we. Let us walk with our family in love and let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every breath I take, let this be my joyous vow, to take each moment and live each moment in peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me.
Thank you, Megan. The light of God surrounds us. I am light. The love of God enfolds us. I am love. The power of God protects us. I am power. The presence of God watches over us. I am presence. Wherever we are, God is. I am divine. Be blessed, be safe.